Okay.
So welcome everybody. We're here to talk about something we love to talk about, and that's Mount St. Joseph University's Department of Liberal Arts. Mostly we like to talk about our students because they are at the center of our major. So I'm going to introduce my co-host and then he will introduce me. So this is Dr. Drew Shannon. He is a professor of English in the Department of Liberal Arts, and looking over his shoulder is one of his favorite women, and that is Virginia Woolf. That's his specialty. He is a internationally known Virginia Woolf scholar, and he will talk about that a little bit later. So Drew, I was very happy that I was able to hire Drew after he was a part-time teacher. And his former university said it's kind of like there's a cult of Drew. There's students that follow him from class to class. And that's kind of happening here too. There are people majoring in Drew Shannon. So Drew.
Hi, Buffy. Thank you. I'm calling her Buffy because Buffy is her nickname. She is Dr. Elizabeth Barkley. She is the chair of the Liberal Arts Department at Mount St. Joseph University. I've known Buffy now since 2006, right? So a long time. And we've been good friends and colleagues ever since. Buffy teaches primarily American literature, African-American literature, a lot of writing classes like composition. And she has been the steady hand that has steered this department for a really long time. So we're very lucky to have her at the helm. Good colleague and good friend.
Thank you. And that's one of the things I love about the Mount and about our department is that we really respect each other and we enjoy being with each other. And that's the way we deal with our students also. So as you can see, the Mount is over 100 years old, and we are going to tell you a little bit about the liberal arts. But I'm going to make this kind of fast so you can go back through it again if you'd like to look at it, because we're going to focus on our students. So we are the liberal arts major, and we're going to tell you who we are and why you might want to join us. So this is kind of a long explanation, but you can read it on your own. But we really feel like we challenge our students to explore their intellectual interests and talents, and we support them. We support them as faculty. And we have faculty scholars from all kinds of disciplines, especially what we specialize in: English, history, philosophy, and religious studies. And it's our argument that none of these studied alone is as powerful or as strong as in combination with the other. We always say it's really hard to read a novel unless you understand some of the history, some of the philosophy, or some of the religion that are dominant in that period. So we like to say that our students are rooted in the past, engaged with the present, and empowered to thrive in the future. This is just a really skeletal overview. We're going to talk more about these areas later in our discussion, but the courses center around history, literature, philosophy, and religious studies, in addition to the core curriculum. They do have a Foundations of the Liberal Arts course, which introduces the 4 areas. And I will say that I did not develop this course. One of our religious studies and one of our philosophy professors did, but I do teach the course, and I love it because I get to know the freshmen in our majors. And then we have upper level seminars that our students love, and they can choose 3. And then they have a senior culminating experience, which we will talk about later.
And can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, sure.
One of the things I really like about our liberal arts major is that the Mount has always prided itself on interdisciplinarity and really trying to educate the whole person. And I feel like we do a particularly good job of that in the liberal arts because, as you said before, I don't think you can understand a piece of art without understanding its historical context and the philosophical backing behind it, and also the religious contexts in which it was written or produced. And one of the best things that I can see in our classes is when a student says, "Oh, this reminds me of something from my philosophy class," and they will spout back what they learned in the philosophy class. Or, "I remember in history we talked about this," or religious studies, and it really makes me feel that there really is a synthesis going on that I think sometimes would not happen were these majors isolated. Because very often, if you were in just, say, a philosophy major, you're not getting a literature component or a history component in quite the same way that you do within this major. So I've been very pleased over the last few years to see that synthesis happening.
And we will have to say that we created this major. This is the 5th year of it. So we graduated our first real class. We've had students who came in and finished the major after something else, but we had 8 graduates this year, which is pretty good. And we reached out to our graduates when we were going to do this presentation, heard from them instantly. Yes, I will write something for you. Yes, I will send my picture, because they're very proud that they're a liberal arts major. So we're going to talk about 4 different 2020 graduates. And Drew, who was going to talk about Connor? Do you remember?
I was.
Okay, so Drew's going to talk about Connor.
Yeah, this is Connor Bryson, who just graduated last year with minors in English and philosophy. I had Connor in a number of courses. He is a deeply cool guy, as you can see from his photo. I'll go ahead and read his little bio that he sent us. I'm presently engaged in a year of service through St. Vincent de Paul, Cincinnati, with their Vincentian Volunteers of Cincinnati program. After this year, I'll probably leave the city and look into nonprofit work with either a community service or a cultural focus. My time at Mount St. Joseph University majoring in liberal arts has helped me significantly on my current path. I made a number of connections at MSJ, some of whom I contacted and worked with in order to make it into the VVC program. In terms of the actual coursework, the liberal arts major at MSJ provided me with a depth of understanding regarding the arts, aesthetics, and our community's engagement with those concepts, as well as a breadth of information informed from all angles: historical, literary, philosophical, and theological. All of this has helped to put me on the course that I am on today. I think it's a good example of what I was just talking about too, that he was able to see the synthesis of ideas from course to course to course.
And I will say that he transferred here, either as a sophomore or junior, and that the other university he had been majoring in engineering, I think. So he's a very well-rounded student, but he just threw himself into the liberal arts, and he's thrilled. And I will say that he and the next student that I'm going to talk about both won the Distinguished Liberal Arts Award because they were both so excellent. The faculty voted, and it was split right down the middle. We don't like to give 2 awards, but we just said they're both so good, we're going to do it. So, okay, I'll move on to, this is Sasha, a lovely young woman. She tells me that one time she was at a pool and some little girl came up to her and she said, "Are you Moana?" And she said, "Well, I won't deny it, but we'll see." But she does kind of look like Moana if you're aware of that cartoon. So I met Sasha at a Discovery Day when we were just promoting the liberal arts degree, and she was kind of intrigued, so she jumped right into it. She has a minor in English and creative writing. She also had almost finished a minor in history, but she needed one more course and she wanted to get out. So one of the things about our major is it's small enough that you can have minors, which really give you specialties to push. So she says, "I currently work as a digital content producer for Local 12 News, meaning I mostly work on writing stories for their website and posting on their social media accounts. When I was in school, I took part in the co-op program and got a job as a public relations assistant for the Mount. My major and my co-op experience gave me a really well-rounded skill set, as well as a solid writing background and lots of references I can contact, all of which helped me get this job. My plan is to keep taking writing-based jobs and building a portfolio to ultimately write and publish my own work." I will also say that for 3 years, beginning as a junior, she was the editor of our school newspaper. And that was one of the things, they talk about contacts that they have. Connor and Sasha both mentioned that. We know our students so well that when somebody calls for a reference or they ask for a letter, we can tell them so many specific things. In fact, she got the job at Local 12 News after my interview with the hiring agent, because he said, she looks just like too good to be true. I said, "That's really what she is." So he told her that the interview with me is what sold him finally to hiring her. So I think that's really a thing that we do well in our department, is promote our students. And this is you, Drew.
Yeah, and I will talk about Tiffany, who graduated last year. And I have a lot of stories I could tell about Tiffany because I worked with her very intensely at the Mount Drama Club, which we'll talk about more in a few minutes. but she appeared in 4 shows that I directed over the course of the 4 years she spent at the Mount. And she played a really wide variety of roles. She was the Nazi landlady in I Am a Camera, based on Christopher Isherwood's Berlin stories. She was the snotty sister of the main character in Noel Coward's Hay Fever. She was the recovering victim of sexual assault in Ariel Dorfman's Death and the Maiden. And she played the lead of Martha in our production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf last year. So she played a lot of...
That was a stunning performance. It
gave
me the chills.
Yeah, she played a lot of really diverse roles with us. She's quite a good actress. But she is not only going to continue working in theater after, since she's graduated, but she's also taking on another pursuit, which we'll read here. Since graduation, my life has been a series of turbulent transitions amidst the pandemic. In the recent months that I've spent working for St. Teresa Little Flower Parish, I've found a stable home. My position here has been an edifying experience while I prepare to pursue a graduate degree in ministry in the fall of 2021. I'm excited to say that I have already received acceptance to the Master of Arts in Pastoral Ministry program at the University of Dayton and the Master of Art in Theology and Christian Ministry program at Franciscan University of Steubenville. This year of discernment has been the most gratifying, exciting, and unexpected time of my life thus far. I would not have made it here had it not been for the skills, discipline, and cultivation of self that I experienced over my 4 years in the liberal arts program. I have to say, one of the things, Tiffany is one of the students who I think in some ways benefited the most from this major, because I feel like she came in as a freshman and emerged a very different person when she graduated, and really turned out to be a remarkable student and remarkable performer. And she's going to do a great job in this new endeavor. I'm really proud of her.
Drew and I both wrote letters of recommendation for her. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, you will have a different take than I will, so this will be really good. And before she really actually applied, she called me last summer and she said, "Can I talk to you?" And so we were talking about her passion for ministry and what she wanted to do. And she felt comfortable talking to me about it. And I had a nice long walk and talk with her. So it was really great. So I'm very excited that she's got accepted at 2 places.
Well, and another thing that is interesting is that I think a lot of times people can think of doing theater as being kind of fluff on the sides of your on the side of your curriculum. It's just something fun to do. But I actually think that in this area of ministry that she wants to pursue, all of that acting work will help her, because she's so used to presenting herself publicly, and she's so used to taking command of a room. And that's what you need in order to hold a room full of people, to be a teacher or to be an educator of any kind. And she'll excel at that.
Okay, next we have Max. He is on the right-hand side with the sweater and the purple, probably elder t-shirt, right in front of Drew Shannon. And he minored in English, and he has a licensure in adolescent and young adults integrated language arts. And it's important to know, I think, that if you want to teach high school history or English, you come through our department, and then we work with the education department to get the licensure. So Max said, "I would recommend this major to students interested in teaching high school English or history. The liberal arts education I received at the Mount has helped prepare me for a career as a high school English language arts teacher. I am currently teaching 8th grade language arts in the Oak Hill School District in Cincinnati. The liberal arts major and English minor courses have not only helped me master the content that I am teaching to students, but have also helped to sharpen my reading, writing, and speaking skills that will be important in all aspects of my career and any other future endeavors." And Drew, do you want to say something about this picture?
Yeah, I do. We mentioned
Sasha's in there too.
Sasha's next to me. This picture is actually taken outside of Virginia Woolf's house in London. Every 2 years or so, we take the students on a trip to London. It's an optional course called Literary London, where we spend 2 weeks there visiting a lot of literary sites and a lot of the sort of tourist spots, reading a lot of British literature, and then encountering the places where the books were set. And Max had a terrific time on that trip. That was in 2018.
2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and we, of course, did have it scheduled for this past summer, but that was canceled due to the pandemic, naturally. But that is something that will hopefully return once things go back to normal.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this so we can look at each other and be on the big screen here.
Yeah.
So we want to go back and talk about that area that I said we would talk about, the upper level seminars. We consider that like the centerpiece of this major. And when we didn't know if it was going to really be as good as we envisioned it, but as we began to offer them, students were so excited about them. So what they are, they're limited to 15 students and they have to be liberal arts majors. So this is where our students really build community in these seminars. And each professor who teaches one, and there's one through philosophy, several through history, several through English, one in religious studies so far, they take a topic they're interested in and they really immerse the students in it so that they learn to research. They do the reading, they do some writing related to that topic, and then they do a presentation. And I will say one of the first ones that I saw presentations in was the one Drew's going to talk about. And I was knocked off my feet. These students knew so much more than I did about this particular field. So I'm going to have Drew talk about that one and another one, and I'll talk about two others.
Yeah, the one Buffy is referring to is a class that I teach called the Loving Friends, the Bloomsbury Group. And the Bloomsbury Group was a group of writers and intellectuals and scholars and artists who lived in the Bloomsbury section of London, primarily in the time between the two world wars. They included people like Virginia Woolf, her husband Leonard, the economist John Maynard Keynes, the biographer Lytton Strachey, the visual artists Vanessa Bell and Duncan Grant. And they were people who would talk about the nature of good. They were very liberal politically, but they produced this incredible amount of artwork, philosophy, journalism, fiction. And what this course does is really immerses them in that period and teaches them to see the Bloomsbury Group as sort of, in some ways, proto-hippies. They were very much ahead of their time, at least in terms of their thoughts about love and romance and sex and politics, etc. And the students really had a terrific time immersing themselves in the lives of these people. And for their final projects, they had to pick a Bloomsbury Group figure and do a presentation on that person for the class, which is what Buffy was referring to. And these people's lives are exceedingly well documented, so there's a lot of research opportunity for the students. And since this is my area of expertise, I can also share my own research into Virginia Woolf's writing that I've done over these past couple of decades. So it's been a terrific course. Another class that students have liked a lot is Oy Vey, which is taught by Elizabeth Mason, one of our colleagues. And that is a sort of survey of Jewish American literature, where she teaches a lot of the heavy-hitting Jewish American writers, especially people like Philip Roth. And it's a really, especially at a school like the Mount, which is a Catholic school, but which is also very open to people of many different religious beliefs. I think it's an incredibly good thing for a lot of our Christian students in particular to be immersed in Judaism and to understand some of the ethnic humor, which is really terrific and really, really funny. And also just that deep scholarly tradition that Jewish writers come out of. Because if you think about it, a lot of these writers are coming out of families that would have studied the Talmud. Jewish culture has always been very word-centered and very verbal. And it's just an incredibly interesting thing to see students immersed in a religious belief system unlike their own. And students I know who have taken that have gotten a lot out of it. And I really feel that, going back to that idea of synthesis, in a lot of ways, the truest multiculturalism comes from the study of other religions. I think that's how you really understand another culture. And this is a good kind of key course in learning about other cultures in particular.
And I'll talk about one. This was one of the first ones that was taught. And people looked at the title and they didn't know how rigorous these seminars are. And they said, oh, this is going to be just about sports. It's going to be easy. Well, Dr. Tim Lynch, who is a scholar of, well, labor history especially, but his course is called America at Play, Baseball, Bare Knuckles, and Back Seats. And it's got a catchy title. But really what it is, it's a social history of America through the sports. So he talks about civil rights. He talks about the women's movement. It's a really engaging course. And a couple of students didn't take it seriously enough. It's like, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna pass this or not, because I got a lot of research and writing to do here, but he makes it very engaging. Another one is taught by one of our philosophers, Dr. Iris Spohr, and it's called Aesthetics, the Philosophy of Beauty. when people get into Iris's class, they really like love philosophy. You notice that Connor minored in it, and he mentioned aesthetics in his little blurb that he wrote. She had a very deep impact on these students. We also have what's called the culminating experience. That's the usually senior level after you've taken all your other courses. And you do the same thing that happens in like Drew's class. But what's so exciting to students here is that they get to pick their own topic. So Tim Lynch, he gave me something. He said, the most important mark of an educated person is the ability to communicate what one knows in the written word. By that measure, liberal arts majors excel. We are really proud of our writers by the time they graduate. The capstone seminar papers of our 2020 graduates are testament to that. Although their topics were quite diverse, ranging from, now listen to what they chose to write about, ranging from the effects of social media on teens, to Darth Vader as a symbol of fear, from the music of Kanye West to the trope of the angry woman in popular culture, from postmodernism's impact on the humanities to the role of private industry in space exploration. The quality of their research and writing was outstanding. And Tim Lynch has very high standards. So he said, this is the best group I've ever worked with. So now that we've talked about the structure and the courses, let me ask you a question, Drew. What can our graduates do with a liberal arts major? There's been a lot of fussing like, oh, it's a liberal arts major. It's not practical. What can you do?
Yeah, I think there's a really lamentable school of thought in our culture that says that this is sort of a wishy-washy area and that it's touchy-feely and that it's not that rigorous, which we know better. And I think that the real proof is that if you look at survey after survey after survey of Fortune 500 companies, what they want is students who can write, students who can think, and students who are analytical in their thinking. And those are all things that we teach in this major. And one of the primary things that many of our students have done is gone on to graduate school. Any number of them have gone on for degrees in library science, English, history, philosophy, pastoral ministry. Many of our students have gone on to grad school, and now several of them have teaching careers. Some of them are full-time librarians. Also law school, going into secondary ed. But even people, there's a student named Alex from a couple of years ago who had been one of our majors and then dropped out, went into the Peace Corps.
He was a history major.
Yeah.
We had a major. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then he came back after he'd been in the Peace Corps, and he has a job in corporate America now, but came back and finished his degree in liberal arts and is still doing now a master's in social work, I think, beyond that. Is that right, Bevy?
Oh, maybe business.
Business, okay. But very often people do take these skills and use them in the corporate world. And again, let me just reiterate that a lot of employers are looking for people with writing and thinking skills, because this is not to disparage any other major, but I mean, I think you really learn writing and thinking in the humanities more than in some of the other areas of study. It's just where that thing automatically happens. So I think it's one of the more, frankly, lucrative majors to study, because you also have a door open to any number of professions and any number of career paths, unlike other majors that really tie you into one specific job. And I know that can often be hard for parents to kind of come to grips with, because this does not sound like it is going to lead to any specific career. The term seems nebulous. But I just want to stress to parents who are listening that this is a skill set that employers are looking for.
And some of our happiest and most contented liberal arts majors are people that started out in a professional field. They were miserable. They said, I don't want to do this, but my mom and dad want me to do this because they think I'll get a job. Well, I don't think there's a guarantee of a job for any field. But once they transferred, and one of them just graduated this year, and she had to add like an extra semester, I think. Yeah, an extra semester, because she started out another major. But she sent me a very long thank you email saying, thank you so much for supporting me. I love student teaching. I'm going to be so happy as an English teacher. So I feel good about that. And we want to talk a little bit. Go on. Go on, Drew.
And the other thing to say is just that one of the things that we're studying in this discipline is the human condition, what it means to be a person, what it means to be a full human being. And I think that's a marvelous thing to be equipped with. And you're learning some very practical life skills along with it.
And I want to just mention some of the extracurriculars that we have, because we try to get involved with our students. I have for quite a few years been in charge of the student online newspaper called Dateline. So some of our students write. Sasha, who you saw before, she was editor for 2 years, and that went a long way on her resume to getting hired. And we have a literary magazine called Lions Online. That's Dr. Elizabeth Mason works with students, and they're student editors. We have an annual writing contest for high school sophomores, and our students get to be judges for that. And they become the peers of the faculty who are judging with them, because they're blind judging, and they all put in their input about who should get the awards for certain categories. We have an ethics bowl that Dr. Iris Ford and another faculty member have, and there was so much interest in it that this year they got to field 2 teams, and they were just either last weekend or this coming weekend, they were doing their first virtual ethics bowl. And then one of our newer faculty members is petitioning to start a chapter of an honor society that's for religion and theology fields. And he's very pleased because it will give students access to professional conferences and to journals and to scholarships. And then Drew, do you want to say something about Liberal Arts Club and the Wolf Conference?
Yeah, and also the drama club, which I mentioned before with Tiffany. Back in 2011, there had not been any plays on campus for some time. And one of our students, who was an English major at the time, who is now a full-time librarian, asked if I would restart the drama club. And from 2011 through last year, we did 10 or 11 productions in 9 years. And we would do at least a show a year, sometimes more than one. And that was such a success that it prompted the administration to hire a full-time theater director, who has now taken that over and starting a theater, hopefully minor fairly soon, separate from the liberal arts department, but sort of closely aligned with us. So that's been very successful, and it's something that a lot of students are currently involved in. We were starting this right before COVID hit, but we were planning a liberal arts club. And once the coronavirus crisis is over, once we're back on campus full time, we will certainly be doing more with the Liberal Arts Club, which we envisioned as being something where we would often take students on bookstore outings, to art museums, to public lectures by interesting people, going to plays, going to concerts, that kind of thing. So there is some seed money for that left over from the International Virginia Wolf Conference, which I hosted at the Mount last year. And that was a conference that brought people from, I think it was something like 21 countries and 5 continents to the Mount in order to talk about Virginia Woolf and her work. I was really happy to have a core group of students called the Wolf Pack who helped me with that conference, and as did Buffy Barkley here. And the students also worked on editing some of the selected papers from that conference for me in a class called Editing and Publishing. And once the book version of the conference proceedings is out, those students will have their names as credit for having been not co-editors, but editorial assistants with me on that project. So it was a really good opportunity for students to get some editing and publishing experience too.
So we're going to stop now. Thank you for spending time with us. I wanted to show you that you can get in touch with me if you would like to contact me, but I can't find this. I can't figure out how to get here. Okay. So here's my contact information, Elizabeth Barkley at msj.edu. And once we begin to have people back on campus, we would love to have you come visit, talk to some of our students. We love having students come sit in our classes so they can see how energized they are. So we hope you get in touch with us. We've really enjoyed being with you on your computer screen. And we wish you the best of luck as you finish out whatever work you're doing this year. Thank you.